Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another positive talk. Super excited about the live today. Uh, my guest today uses his platform to spread positivity in lots of different ways, so I'm super excited to be bringing him on. With a lot of different coaches. So I'm vibrating in high frequency. So hopefully you all enjoy today's live and are having a great week. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good myself.
Amazing.
Today I don't have to work my corporate job. I get to be 100% me and my coaching stuff. So I'm excited.
That's so nice. Oh, beautiful. No, it's a beautiful day.
Awesome. Well, I will let you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and then we can dive into a conversation.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Jax. I don't know what I am. It's hard to describe. I'm sort of like an LGBT positive influencer, I guess. I don't think anybody really likes the term influencer. I think we all kind of cringe at that word. But it's very humbling to know that I don't know, influence or make people smile, make people laugh. I try to focus on the positive. There's a lot of negativity out there, and so I think social media should be a place where people can come and enjoy and maybe laugh a little, learn about themselves, talk philosophy, talk about the crazy deep stuff. I've never been a person who likes talking about the weather or, the sort of the small talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's who I am. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for today's positive talk.
Awesome. Well, you definitely touched on a lot of the things that were kind of root causes for starting positive talks in the first place. I'm definitely a deep conversation person. I would much rather get to know someone on a deeper level than know how they feel about the weather outside. And I also believe social media should be utilized to spread positivity and help people broaden their perspective of the world that we all live in. So I'm excited for the conversation. So when did you kind of start the journey of wanting to use social media as a way to kind of spread that type of message?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, I've been making TikToks and that kind of fun stuff for years now, but it's only been since the start of this year, since probably January, February, that I decided to do a lot more of the motivational stuff, more of the looking on the bright side, focusing on positivity. And it's only within the last 2 or 3 months that I've really started specifically talking about sort of positivity within the gay community, what it means to be queer in today's world, sort of the shifting landscape of that kind of stuff. And then just broadly, I really do focus on a lot of the just aspects of positivity, what you can do day to day. I'm a big overthinker, and I'm constantly my brain is my biggest enemy, and so trying to focus on how to get out of that, creating routines and sort of principles in my life that really encourage that positivity. So yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind journey over the last sort of 8 months, but I'm loving it. I can't believe all the support and all the kindness everybody's been. You kind of often think about entering this kind of space and encountering the real negativity of the internet, and the internet can be a dark and a mean place, but I think if you're able to focus on that positivity and you're able to focus on the good, that's really, really, really positive and really fun.
Yeah. I think that when it came to, because I've been doing content probably almost 10 years now.
Wow.
I started on the YouTube platform, and I think when it comes to people starting, because you can start with the most pure intentions of wanting to make the world a better place, and you're always going to hit those trolls who are triggered by the content you're creating, or just are having a bad day and feel like taking it out on the first person's video they come across. And for me, it was a journey. I was thankful that my first video I kind of posted and never looked back at the comments, because a couple years later I did look at the comments, and I don't know if I would have continued at that age because I was still really learning about myself and who I was. Some of those comments were kind of really out there and mean, but I think that overall, the people who were commenting under saying thank you for sharing, this really helped me. That encouraged me to keep going. And Positive Talks came in 2020 when we had a pandemic. It was an election year here in the United States. We had a lot of movements going on and a lot of unknown. Our world had been flipped upside down. So I was like, I want to continue to make content, but I don't want it to be focused around me, because I think there's a lot of things it could be focused on that would be better. So Positive Talks kind of grew out of that and became a space to kind of bring as many new perspectives as possible, because I think that we can all learn and grow from hearing each other's perspectives. And I mean, the LGBT community, we are far from perfect, but it's a beautiful community to be a part of. And I think that there's a lot of space for us to grow and heal. So when it comes to people like you creating content, creating a space for people to grow and heal, I think is really important.
Absolutely. I think it's sort of the universal message, it's really, really important. And I think it's really interesting when you said about sort of reading comments and things. I think we all, everyone on social media, whether you're somebody who just observes content or you create content yourself, we are very easily bogged down in bad comments. I can receive hundreds of incredibly sweet, heartwarming, genuine comments from people saying, thank you so much, this really helped me, or your video made me laugh on a bad day. I can get one comment and I read that and it's a negative one about man, your teeth are too big, or your nose is large, and I'm thinking about that for the rest of the day. Why does that happen? You get bogged down in one comment. It's like, geez.
Yeah. I mean, being someone who went into the modeling world and came back out, being in that realm, I went in with a lot of confidence and left feeling more horrible about myself, because things that I never realized were pointed out to me. And then when I started looking in the mirror, that's all I could see. And it took a lot of self-healing again. And then of course, coming on social media where I'm live, there's no filters on this. It's the real me. If I mess up, if I sound stupid, it's all live. But when it came to people kind of pointing stuff out, it made me realize that I needed to ground myself before I kept putting myself out in so many vulnerable spaces. So there was a lot of work, and I think now social media is so open to so many people that I think parents, when it comes to their children being on social media, need to be more aware of how it can impact them. And then just as adults, being aware that sometimes you're not in the right headspace to get on social media, because you start to kind of fall down the black hole of whatever emotions you're already feeling before you jump on. So I definitely did a whole thing where I was starting to unfollow a lot of accounts that would kind of take me away from the whole reason I got on social media, which was to feel better or find new perspectives and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a huge proponent of really, really being critical and curating the people you follow and the content you consume. Because, I can remember being in school, and my era was right when sort of Facebook and these social media things were taking off. And so I can remember sort of the cyberbullying, those aspects, were just starting. And so you'd go home from school and your classmates basically came home with you. They'd talk about, this person did this in chemistry class or whatever. And so, having that kind of stuff, you really do have to curate. And I can remember even back then, there were people that were saying, oh, you need to take a day off from social media. You need to separate. And those people saying that were they were ostracized. And it was like, what do you mean, take a day off from social media? But nowadays, taking a week or taking some time off of social media is so important and is so critical, because even if you're just curating your space with positivity and motivational things and, self-help and self-improvement, you know, you do need time just for yourself to live in the present and live in the moment and just appreciate, you know, who you are and how far you've come.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the nice thing is they do have apps out there now that can help you like create your content and share it, even though you're not going into the social media app yourself. You can schedule posts because a lot of times, yeah, even though I'm on social media, I thrive here because I need connection with other people. I do need real life interactions with people. So even when I'm taking time off from social media, it appears that I'm still existing in the realm, just because there's apps and stuff that can help me with that. So it's interesting to use social media to tell people to get off of social media, but it's definitely important. And I think when it comes to the social media aspect of things, like finding self-worth attached to numbers, views, likes, whatever exists in the realm of the platforms you're on, I think it's important to kind of detach your like worth from any type of social media platform and find a new space to kind of build that, because I know you can post one thing and go viral and it's a great feeling, but then that puts you in a whole nother ballpark of now you're in front of a lot more people who have opinions that might not be so kind. But it's just important to realize that your self-worth does not exist on social media. It can't be taken away from less likes. Your self-worth is always there, impacted by the life that you live outside in the real world.
yeah, yes, absolutely. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I was starting was a friend of mine said, just create and move on. And I've really lived by that. You know, I love engaging with um, my content and people making comments and things, especially on like YouTube and TikTok and stuff. But I think it really is important to, you know, create something, you know, let it pass your own internal judgment. You know, is this content worth it? Is it going to impact people? Is it going to make people feel good? And then as soon as it passes your judgment and you've posted it, you know, you have to live by it. And you just say, you know, this is it, and moving on from that content and, you know, focusing on the next big thing. I think that's really important. And, you know, again, whether you're a content creator or you're somebody who is using social media and you are trying to use it to, you know, improve your life, make you feel better about yourself, connect with people, I think it really is important to create and move on and not get bogged down. Because I mean YouTube comments are famous for sort of the vitriol and the anger. And I'm a very apolitical person, especially being from Canada. Like I don't take sides on the whole US political spectrum, but I've had videos where I talk about being a sort of gay rural country boy, and there will be fire chats, like just people fighting about, you know, Democrats versus Republicans. And it's unbelievable that like a video that I made that had nothing to do with politics brings in this huge crowd of people who are just arguing viciously about politics. It's like, man, this is like, the video is supposed to be fun and positive, and you know, there's a 200 comment chain of argument and vitriol, and I'm just like, what did I do? You know, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think in today's world, like you could be talking about vanilla versus chocolate ice cream and somehow it can be turned into a political conversation of things, which is crazy. But I know that for me, when I was creating content, I used to be so scared to be anywhere close to politics or sharing a personal opinion that maybe people could disagree with. But we've gotten to the point where it's just like people are going to disagree. In 2020, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to navigate through this political atmosphere, and I'm going to just speak highly of what I support, and I'm not going to speak negatively of the things that I don't support. I will just continue to boost up what I believe in and stay away from the other side of things. And of course, people had opinions about that, thinking that because I didn't choose to speak of the people I don't approve of, that I was still doing a disservice on my social media platforms. And I was just like, navigating it is definitely not easy. So when it comes to all the content that you've created. You've created stuff that is there for humor. You've created there to inspire. Do you feel like you've ever created something where you're just like, ooh, this kind of rubbed people the wrong way?
Yes, it's funny you asked that because while you were saying, I was thinking of a video. I made a video a few months ago about sort of my approach to reading the news and checking the news. And in my opinion, I think the news is very hyperbolic. I think, you know, it's designed to get clicks because that's how their revenue stream works. And so I made a video basically saying like, no, I don't read the news. I don't check these like hyperbolic sites, you know, whether it's Fox News or CNN or, you know, in Canada we have CBC and the BBC. I don't consume that normally, you know. I listen to the people in my life about what they're concerned of, you know, like right now in Canada and America, it's the wildfires across both our countries. And so like I know what's going on in life and I'm an active participant in our society. But this video basically talked about how I don't consume the news because I don't think it's healthy, and I don't think listening to these hyperbolic opinions based on these giant corporations, you know, I'm like, no, I'm not going to consume that content. And I did get quite a lot of, I'm not going to say backlash, but I got an abnormally high number of comments basically being like, Jax, like that's really irresponsible of you. You know, you need to take an active role in your society. And I was like, no, I take it. And I made a follow-up video that got even more, more vitriol and more stuff. Basically like, okay, guys, I'm going to explain what I mean. And I tried to explain basically that, you know, I'm an active participant in our society. You know, if someone is trying to pass a law that I disagree with or that infringes on rights of people I love and care about, I'm going to be right there in the streets, you know, protesting with the rest of them. But I don't actively consume this hyperbolic news, and I don't follow this 24-hour news cycle because A, it's not healthy, and B, they might be saying that the end of the world is coming tomorrow, and then tomorrow it's something different. So yeah, I've dealt with sort of the controversy of saying, you know, yeah, I'm trying to stay focused on the positivity, guys, and they're like, you can't, you need to focus on the negative. And it's like it's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting because I see some platforms that are completely disengaged with speaking on anything that's happening around them, where it's very much focused on their core message of whatever their message is for their platform. And you see that people are engaging and loving it and eating it up, but then people are still offended that this person's message doesn't wrap itself around every issue that's ever brought up. And I've shared with people, like, when I was just posting for local people, because at that time I was a small content creator posting for my friends. And then when my audience grew, that meant my knowledge had to grow because now I'm presenting myself in front of a larger audience. But then when you go globally, then you also have to be aware that globally people's opinions are very different. So when it comes to creating content, I'm aware that there are things going on all over the world, but I'm also one person creating content based upon my lived experience. So it's like having to kind of navigate and open people's eyes to the fact of like, hey, I'm here in the United States. I'm fed whatever news that I am seeing from whatever outlet I am seeing it from. You can't be mad at me if I'm not focusing on something that's happening in a continent I'm not a part of, because the news outlets and the ways that media gets shared across platforms, it's all algorithm. And it's just something that, hey, I can't have an opinion on everything. If something's important, you bring it up. I like to educate myself. I don't like just reading a headliner and then just going with that. So it's definitely interesting, but like when it comes to creating content, I have found safety in the positive message, opening people's eyes. Like, I believe all of us need to live a little bit better of like diving inward and discovering ourselves, connecting with ourselves. I was just doing a coaching thing with a coach in my program that I'm in, and he was like talking about control, because when you said that your mind goes everywhere, my mind does the same thing. And it's like I have to control everything around me,
Mm.
And when I can't, then I start getting stressed and trying to problem solve and fix the environment. Whereas really it's just about controlling myself, going inward and learning how to kind of navigate myself in any environment that I'm in. Because at the end of the day, if we spend time getting to know ourselves better, everything gets that much easier.
Yes. Yeah, there's like I'd say it's a battle being waged in philosophy, and it's been waged since ancient Greece. Um, and it's essentially the great debate of, how do you improve the world? Do you improve the world by going out there and, fighting for the causes that you love and you care about and, actively trying to change the world? Or do you make the world a better place at home first? Do you really cherish and respect and protect the people in your life and yourself, you being the most important factor? And just by doing that, does that make the world a better place? And I'm a big advocate that I think the self-positivity, the self-motivation, realizing like how far everybody has come. I mean, we're all survivors of, our lives essentially. And I truly believe that by focusing on yourself and your internal first, you are going to make your external so much better, by being that well-rounded, happy, focused, motivated person. You then project that to the people you love. I mean, we always talk about you are the sum total of the seven closest people in your life. Well, if you become just this self-fulfilled person that loves, that has a huge impact on those seven people. And those seven people have seven people in their life who are also there. And that creates like a chain of positivity and motivation that I think is really underrated in our society. When you have these like monumental problems like climate change and the political situation, the economic situation, um, it's really hard to feel as an individual that you can have an impact on it. But I firmly believe that you can have an incredible impact just by being that person for those people in your life and for being that person for yourself.
Yeah. I took, like, it was a hard pill to swallow when, like, talking about the seven close people around you, when I had a group of people that was around me that I judged very harshly, uh, not realizing that the seven people existed because the energy I was putting out was the energy that brought them there and kept them there. So it did take a shift for me to be like, hey, like if this is my crowd right now, what energy am I putting out to keep these people hanging out or keep them in the mindset where they think what's being said and done is okay? And soon enough, like as soon as I changed my mindset, changed my actions, changed the way I was navigating through the world, like those people started falling away and new people who were in the mindset that I wanted to be in started taking their place. And yeah, it does create a ripple effect. And I learned that the opportunities that you would have never thought of start falling into your lap when you are creating that energy of this is what I want in life. There were so many opportunities that just kind of fell in my lap that I would have never known to like ask for or apply for because I was just, that was who I was known for. Like I created a space that people are like, this person is this is his brand.
Mm.
And those things started attaching themselves to me. And I was just like, wow, okay. So I really did have to do some inner work. And it's not always easy to admit that the negative stuff around you is probably hanging out there because you're allowing it to.
For sure. And yeah, I love what you just said there. And I think as somebody who tries to go down the path of positivity and good vibes, focusing on the good energy, it can be really hard when you have someone in your life that you love or you care about that is bringing you down. And I've made some content about sort of having to be a bit harder, either on yourself or on the people in your life. And if there is somebody in your life who is draining your energy, who is constantly a source of difficulty, who is essentially a black hole where your energy goes into, but you never get anything back, it's okay to cut that person out. It's a hard thing to do. I've had friends, I've had people in my life that, you know, you get to a point that you're just like, I'm so sorry, but in order for me to keep going, like, you have to go your own way, and I have to go my own way too. And I think it's hard, especially if you're in that positivity and motivational mindset and you're in that sphere, that it's so hard to just say, look, like, this isn't working, you know, this isn't working for me, I'm sorry. And that can be like one of the hardest things to do, especially for like a people pleaser like me. It's just like, no.
Yeah, I like to call those people like wet sticks,
Mm.
where it's just like if you spend too much time with them trying to help relight them when you are not like a super strong fire, uh, eventually they're going to put you out and then you're going to be a wet stick. Whereas, like, if you remove yourself from the wet situation, you're going to grow as a flame, and eventually the heat from your flame will dry them off and maybe ignite them to where they can come back in later and shine just as bright with you. But if you spend your whole life trying to light a wet stick when you're just like a match, you're going to go out and be stuck in that situation as well. And I think a lot of times we try to pull everyone with us when we're trying to grow, not realizing that sometimes people have to be inspired to grow. And maybe you leaving them behind and going to find something better and achieving that will be the inspiration that they need to get up and make that journey as well. But if we all sit there in the damp, wet areas of life, no one will be inspired. So sometimes, yeah, you have to leave some people behind. You don't have to say like burn the bridge or like cut them out completely, but sometimes, yeah, they have to be left behind so you can actually go and brighten up your fire the way that you need to.
Yes, yeah, it's so incredible. The most influential book that I've ever read is the Tao Te Ching, which is a Taoist work, ancient Chinese philosophy. If you've ever seen the yin yang symbol, that comes from Taoism, and it was sort of a night and day kind of change for me. I mean, I read it within a day. It's not a super long book, but it's really impactful and really powerful. And I remember sort of the next day, it's like everyone else is acting like this is normal, but my world has totally shifted. And I ended up sort of like making my parents and my whole sphere of influence basically read it. I was like, you guys gotta read this. You know, it's so impactful. It's so amazing. You know, the positivity, the ability to just, you know, not let things affect you in your daily life, and not let the anxiety creep in, not let the overthinking creep in. And you know, it's so frustrating sometimes when you've read something like that, or you know, I equate it to watching an amazing movie, and then you go and tell everyone you gotta watch this movie, and you know, they watch it and it's not the vibe for them, and you're like, no, this was so good, this was so amazing. And so for me, that book absolutely was just like that. And I remember having friends come back and go, yeah, I read it, but like, you know, it was interesting, but I didn't quite get this, or you know, this, you know, this doesn't make sense. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, you know, my experience of this was subjective. You know, it was just my experience. But you know, you want people to find these things just as impactful as you do. And I think it's such a human thing that you're just like, man, this is so good, guys. You guys got to come and, you know, join the positive movement, join the positivity, you know.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to allow people to kill the vibe that you get on when you do experience those types of things. And I started realizing that when I started surrounding myself with people, because I'm a people pleaser, because I'm a coach, because I like helping people, that I surrounded myself with a lot of people that needed things from me, but didn't give me things. So I was giving out a lot, and the energy was not understood when I reached a new level or learned something new and shared it, and then never got any celebration or excitement back from them. So I had to realize that there's a really good balance of surrounding yourself with like mentors, surrounding yourself with peers, and then surrounding yourself by students that can learn from you and grow from you. So I had a lot of students or people that could grow from me. I did not have a lot of mentors, and I had barely any peers that were like on the journey of wanting to be a coach in that way. So when I started pulling some people and putting them in places, when I found something cool, My peers loved it. My mentors started giving me more when I was telling them what I discovered. They're like, well, here's some more resources. And it gave me more stuff to be excited about. So I think that it's really cool to kind of be aware of those types of situations, because if you're surrounded by a lot of people who are like the wet sticks, like the excitement dies, and then you're not even excited about finding new stuff, to the point where it almost stops you from looking for new stuff, because you're like, oh, well, no one really enjoys this. So it's like you can burn for a while by yourself, but eventually you do need some more people that can kind of keep you lit as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, choosing your mentors, choosing your peers, choosing everybody in your sphere is so important. And I used to be very sort of like, family is blood. You have to absolutely live by that. And I'm lucky that I've got a great family. But nowadays, like I absolutely sympathize with people who say, no, 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 like family, like your relation by blood, that doesn't mean anything. It's the people you choose in your life. And I think that's so true. And in terms of like mentors, finding a good mentor can really be incredibly important. I've talked a lot about sort of proximity and how I think proximity is one of these universal laws of the universe, because you think about like many of these they call them nepo babies, the children or the grandchildren or the close relatives of incredibly successful people find themselves in positions of power, find themselves, in big acting roles and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot to be said for sort of nepotism or, those kinds of things. There's a lot to be addressed there. But I think the law of proximity is really important, because if you choose to surround yourself or be in a location that promotes growth and promotes that, that fire you're talking about, that, keeps you warm and you get to embrace and you keep others warm. I think proximity has a lot to play with that. As someone who lives in like a very rural part of Canada, um, I think proximity is so important, because I have had so many situations where I am traveling or I'm, experiencing something and I meet a certain person or a certain situation happens. And it's like, that situation would never have happened if I'd stayed home at the farm today, And so I think in terms of human experience, our proximity to others and to certain events or things or places really can't be understated. I think it's an interesting topic that most people are sort of unaware of. We just kind of take for granted being close to somebody, or, you know, when you find your significant other and they live 4 blocks down from you or whatever, you go to college with them. Proximity has a huge role to play in our lives. And I think you gotta try and stack the deck in your favor when it comes to all these little things in life.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've moved a lot in my life, and I grew up in a very rural area here in Virginia. So I came back to Virginia after living in so many different places, like huge cities, like some of the biggest ones in the world, and then seeing like the rural way of doing things versus the very, very advanced city life that I got to experience. And I was just like, wow, I'm so grateful for the fact that I got to do that, because there were people where I'm just like, didn't you learn all of this? Like, I've been taught so much from just being around other adults and other people, learning to survive in new spaces. Diversity is definitely a lot more apparent in the cities than it was in the rural areas. So, like, I got my mind and eyes opened by traveling and being around people who were different than me, to where when I came home, I was more confused by why people were scared of different, because I was like celebrating and getting excited anytime someone had something new to share with me. Whereas when you're from more rural areas, it's what you're taught. It's like same is safe, different is dangerous, stay away from it, don't go near it. The internet, of course, is a beautiful tool to kind of connect us with one another, but the algorithms are also set up against us getting new like connections, because usually it's going to show you and find you people who are similar to you, that like the same posts as you do, follow the same people you do. So sometimes you have to put yourself out there and explore the new things and be someone who's okay with like looking a little dumb. Like, if I always tell people, don't be the smartest person in the room because you're not going to grow there. I think a lot of people have like that pride or their ego that guides them, that makes them feel very safe in a room where they're the smartest. I prefer not to be in those rooms. I would much rather be in a space where I can just listen to people. I know I speak a lot on these podcasts, but I find it a lot more comforting to be in a space where like people are igniting new thoughts in my mind.
Yeah, I think I've talked a bit about this, but like, yeah, like you said, ego. Human ego is one of the biggest barriers to living a successful life. I truly believe that because if if your ego is the little voice in your head and it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to hype you up and say, my gosh, you were the best, you're the smartest one in the room, you are, you don't need these losers, like move on, that kind of stuff. Or your ego is going to say, you're a loser, you can't do it, why bother? Your ego is going to do one of two things. And both of those things are a problem. And so shutting that voice up and just saying, no, I'm going to live in the moment. I'm good enough. I need to learn. I've got a lot to learn, but I'm good enough to be here. That is so important because, like you said, you don't learn anything if you think you're the smartest in the room. And you're never able to feel like you can achieve anything if your ego, your inner voice is just being, the most hateful, rude person in your life. I think for a lot of us, the worst encounters we have are with ourselves. I don't think they're with other people. I think, somebody on the street could, say, oh, you got stupid hair and, you look ridiculous. And like, I'll brush that off. I might be thinking about that for the rest of the day, but I'll brush that off. But if my brain says that to me, if my inner voice is talking garbage to me, then suddenly that's a real problem because I can't escape my inner brain. When I'm lying in bed at night, I'm like, man, maybe I am. And that little voice sort of ignites itself. And suddenly, that leads to all kinds of negativity, which impacts your life and the people in your life too.
Yeah. I think also like you were talking earlier about like the news outlets and everything kind of having an agenda. They need to make things clickable. They need to make money somehow by making you watch their content that they're creating. One thing that I noticed is like in 2020, like the internet made it seem like we all hated each other. Like there's no one that could possibly talk to some other person without finding something that makes them different and bad. But then when I disconnected from social media, the news, whatever else was being pushed in your face, and say going out into nature, there's this beautiful waterfall here, and all the people were super diverse. There was lots of different people. The city people discovered country during COVID because everything in the city was shut down. So they all made their way out to the country, and everything was so diverse and nothing looked like what was being presented to me on social media. Like everyone was just laughing and having a good time and talking about like the hike that they had to do to get there and all the different things, the relaxing stuff that they're now able to do because the jobs were stressful, going virtual. And even just this weekend, I went to the beach and I saw children that were all different cultures and just hanging out, having fun together. There was nothing that was keeping them from playing with one another. And I was like, there's something somewhere that's dividing us, but it doesn't seem to be happening as much in spaces where we're allowed to just exist and be ourselves. So like realizing, because I think that it's important to like let the world know what your values are and try to live those values, but I don't think we have to shove it down people's throats. I've started to kind of remove any type of political message from my clothing. I've tried to just exist in the world where your judgment's going to be based upon my actions, and I'm going to treat everyone as respectfully and kindly as I can. But it's interesting to see social media and how divided they make us seem, and then look outside and see how we can exist with each other and live in harmony and enjoy a day at the waterfall, at the beach, at a movie. But it's very interesting because those two worlds don't seem anything alike, but they are in the same world.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, that sort of touches on something that is pretty near and dear to my heart, which is sort of labels and how we identify. Because in the LGBT community, your label is like one of the most important factors that determines, a lot of stuff. And there are sub labels. So, you're not just gay, you're a twink, or you're a bear, or you're a twunk, or, these labels appear and more of them get stacked onto you, and people are obsessed with whether you're a top or bottom. And like, there's all these kinds of factors that label yourself. And just using the LGBT community as sort of a petri dish or like a subset of the world, we're divided based on these labels. And so we view ourselves as completely different. And certain groups are given, premium treatment while others are, cast aside. And that's kind of how society is working too. We're labeled and we're identified as being this or that, or, black and white, blue and yellow, like red and blue. And so suddenly you identify with these labels and you see yourself as this thing. And, I think it's great to have a community. It's great to feel connected to the other people who identify with your label. But I think it's also worrying that we are more and more now starting to see each other as just labels. And, one of the big appeals to some of my TikToks is that I'm a gay cowboy. Like, I'm a gay rural farm boy. I grew up on a farm. I live on a farm now, like my whole family. But I'm gay. And so this is this weird, like, oh, he doesn't fit the label, he doesn't fit the dichotomy of being gay, but also, he knows how to drive a tractor and change oil. Like, these aren't things that we equate with the label of being gay or the label of being, a rural farm kid. And so it's interesting that online a lot of people are very surprised when they watch a video of mine that just deals with motivation, positivity. I might be wearing a cowboy hat and walking down the crop line, and then they watch the next one and they're like, wait, he's gay? Like, and it conflicts with their inner image of what these labels should be and who I am. And, I think it's nice to like break those stereotypes and to break out of that whole idea. But it's also interesting to have to deal with this dichotomy. And I think we're getting to a point where these labels are starting to close off these communities to one another. And we're not being able to exchange the information and the connection that makes us human. So I do worry about labels and that. And maybe that's why I really play up the dichotomy of being gay and being a farm kid. And, neither of these things has to conflict with the other thing.
Yeah. I mean, like when I created my logo, which is like the mountain lion with the rainbow across its face, like I was like, okay, so the LGBT community, like we've really found a way to like stamp the unicorn and make something a very strong symbol for a community of people. And I was like, I don't really fit, like when we list off like all the different labels that we put on gay men in the LGBT community, I'm like, I don't really align with these. And I think a lot of times those labels come with like a list underneath of what you need to have to be a part of that. It's just like another thing for us to be like, oh, you're not good enough to be a part of the bear community. You don't have enough hair to be a part of this. You're not big enough. You have to weigh this much to be, join this club. And it's just like when you try to look at it as more of like, I'm a unique individual. Everyone is. No matter what person you stand in front of, you can find a million things that make you different. And that should be celebrated. You can use things like the LGBT community as like a space to find community. But we have to get better at bringing those communities together and then celebrating all the differences. I mean, our community is the most diverse in the world. Because we exist in every continent, we exist in every religion, race, gender. Like we're a very diverse community. We should not be a community where we think that labels really define us in such a permanent way. But it's definitely important for people to be like, hey, I'm gonna like say this is who I am. It's okay. It doesn't need to fall under any type of like list for it to be okay for me to demonstrate this part of myself. But when it comes to the LGBT community, I do think we disconnect ourselves from the world, because a lot of times I hear people say, oh, well, the gay dating scene is horrible. And I'm like, social media has made it hard for everyone. Everyone's dating scene is rough, because it used to be you could date the people in your high school. Then you could date maybe someone from the next high school over. Then in college, of course, you get mixed up with a whole new group of people. But then, like, we add social media to it. And, like, I went on a date with someone once where he was like, oh, well, I've been talking to this guy that's in Colorado on the other side of the United States. And I got turned down for someone who's not even in the same state. We've got so many options. It's not a gay thing. It's a world thing. We are all in this together. We're all navigating this internet and social media thing together. And we are not acknowledging that as like maybe a little bit of the source of the problem. It's not the gay community. We're not horrible, disgusting people who are all just interested in hurting one another. Like, most of us are seeking love, validation, and acceptance from one another, but we're all navigating internally through our own traumas and pains, unknowingly creating more trauma and pain for the people around us, because we are creating spaces where people feel unaccepted. It's like people leave religion to come to our community to find acceptance, and we found even more ways to exclude each other. So it's like you have to navigate and be a little bit more aware of that, and ask yourself, like, how diverse are the people around you? Do you allow yourself to have friends that think differently and you allow them to still exist in your circle, or do you kick them out to find someone to stand next to you that agrees with everything you say?
Absolutely. It's frustrating because I feel like we are getting to a point where, you know, gay people only interact with other gay people. And while it's great to feel, you know, connected to other people based on, you know, similar experiences and, you know, different, like you said, like the traumas that we face, um, you know, it takes a village, and you do need those people around you who are with you regardless of these labels and things. You know, I think I have friends within the gay community who, if I wasn't gay, would not be my friend. And that's a really strange thing to grapple with, to really like see yourself as an identity or as a label, that if you didn't have this particular label associated with you, these people might not want to associate with you, which is really strange. You know, it's a bizarre kind of sort of death by association, and you're just kind of like, what do you mean? Like, would we be friends if we weren't both gay, or weren't both part of the LGBT community? And it makes you wonder about like society as a whole, and how many people are only associating with people that look like them or act like them, or, you know, those kinds of things. And those are like destructive cycles, because I mean, if you're in an echo chamber like that, and you're in a space where, you know, everybody is a rural conservative who just doesn't understand those gosh darn city people, suddenly you're like stuck in this very particular political view, and that can lead to some radicalization. And we've seen that for the last few years. COVID was a great example of, you know, it divided us based on whether we wanted to wear a face mask or whether we weren't wearing one, or whether we were vaccinated or not. And, you know, those rifts have still not healed over. There are still communities that are absolutely fervently against one or the other. And, you know, these kinds of problems are really an issue with human society, because we have never been more connected via technology, via being able to travel across the world in a single day. You know, we have never been more connected, and yet we've created these echo chambers and these communities that don't embrace diversity, that aren't getting to see the other side of the story. And that's always a dangerous situation. You can go back in human history as far back as you want, and when a group of people get together and start hyping each other up and just communicating with each other, they think that they are superior, and, you know, the consequences are devastating. So I think we need to break out of these and see ourselves more than just LGBT, or, you know, more than just our race or religion or any of this stuff. we're all connected, and my well-being is your well-being. You know, we are all one big family.
Yeah, it's interesting because you were talking about that, and when the 2020 election went on, like there are still people who have really identified with who they voted for. Like that's their label. I've had people reach out to me in messages and be like, "Would you be friends with a Republican gay person?" And I'm like, that title, like, yes, you can put a long list of stereotypes underneath of it, but that title itself isn't going to say like, no, I would never be friends with you. When it comes to your actions and the things that you are doing in the world, that might not align so much with who I am as a person. If you feel like it's okay to go out into the world and attack and be hateful to people who disagree with your opinions, we probably won't align. But if you are a kind-hearted person who your journey has brought you to the belief that this person would have been a better president for the United States, and you have valid reasons and can be polite and respectful in sharing your opinions, sure, we can be friends and have conversations and agree to disagree at the end of the conversation. But if you feel like you need to demean and attack and belittle people who think differently than you, then we probably won't make it very long on that friendship train. And I think that that is an issue. Like people share a title and ask if you're willing to like be an association with this person because of a title. And I'm like, I don't know, because that title really, depending on how you define it, is very different than how I might define it. And it's just understanding. I always said like it would be cool if in the United States we could just take names off the ballot and just put ideals, and then at the end it goes, surprise, you voted for. I think a lot of people would actually be very surprised who comes up at the end of that, because I think a lot of times we're having such surface level conversations, like we talked about at the beginning, not liking to be that way. But it's like in the United States, it's Republican, Democrat, and we like are colliding. If we took just maybe 3 steps below that, it's like family values, love and acceptance, love and acceptance. Like there are so many things that are so similar. We're just saying it differently up here. And that's with everything, not just politics. A lot of times, if you are having a surface level conversation and not getting to know them any deeper, you're speaking a different like language, but saying the same thing. But if you don't take the time to understand and care and be compassionate enough to get past that original label or that original like misunderstanding, mistranslation, like you leave so much space to like be surrounded by people who just like give you the thumbs up with everything that you say. Like being a gay in rural parts of Virginia, I had to look past people's political statements that they wore so proudly on their chests, on their hats, and see them as people. And because of that, I was able to have people conversations with people instead of political conversations. And we were able to align and have respect for one another. And I was able to see why they believed that this person was a better candidate than the others. And they were able to kind of open up and see why I would have voted differently. And that's okay. Yes, we can go to the extreme and be like, if you support these people, you're supporting gay rights being taken away. I'm like, no, I'm loving these people who see things differently, because we have very different journeys. We have different things that we care about. But at the end of the day, we care about something. We're not evil, like monsters that want to end the world. But there's so much surface level conversation that's where it seems like we're at in the world, because there's not enough deep conversations happening.
No, and that's like the universal problem. And even, you know, as a Canadian, we have like a very interesting perspective, because we have the opportunity to sort of consume everything that you guys consume, but we're not attached to it. And so even in some of my videos where I'm sort of, you know, tongue in cheek talking about being a gay farmer, you know, I get comments being like, who'd you vote for? And people, yeah, exactly. People don't make the assumption that like, oh, he's Canadian, you know, we have, you know, a similar enough accent in Canada that we're sort of mistaken for Americans. And it's funny having these people come up and go, you know, who'd you vote for? And then they find out you're Canadian and they're like, oh, he's safe, you know, he's like, he's apolitical in terms of, you know, I obviously have my political views and my perspectives, but in terms of sort of the American dialogue, Canadians kind of get this front row seat kind of better
The
too.
whole world does.
Yeah, yeah, we get to look at you guys and just sort of see the whole grand experiment of this republic democracy functioning, and it is interesting, and it's funny how often Americans will sort of, you know, come up to me and be like, wait. Like, what's your political view? It's like, well, I'm Canadian. And then, oh, okay, yeah, never mind. You're safe then. Like, you're, you know, we can talk about anything. And as soon as you're out of that sphere, people are willing to overlook a lot of your labels and a lot of your perspective. But on the other hand, people are very quick to assign labels, and I think it must go back to sort of the human experience of, you know, thousands of years ago, we must have had to make a judgment call as soon as we met somebody, like, is this a friend or is this a foe? And we use these labels and these identifying characteristics, whether they're physical or, you know, now whether they're in your Instagram bio. Is this person my friend or is this my foe? You know, is this my combatant or is this an ally? And while it's interesting that humans have this perspective, and, you know, they say your first impression within the first 7 seconds is really, really critical to whether you like someone or not. It's also sad that, you know, we're so quick to put somebody on a shelf and be like, oh, we don't touch them. They're, you know, not safe.
Yeah. It's interesting because, yeah, if you think about it, them not being able to attach a political party to you means they don't get to stick their hatred or their love to you that quickly. So it's almost like, okay, this person is safe for me to share my opinions with because this person is not this or that. They're somewhere else. And it's interesting because we do that in every way, shape possible when it comes to meeting people. And I think that that's interesting because even with like going on dates with people, like a first date is a first date, and you, like you said, 7 seconds, we can guess whether or not we're going to like this person, but we don't really know them. And we're probably projecting a lot of preconceived opinions based upon any type of answer that they give. So it's like a lot of times before I started dating my current boyfriend, I'd go on dates and I felt like I was on an interview of you got to get all 200 questions right or you're not getting a second date. And it's like, oh dear Lord, these questions are really intense. Like the fact that it's just like within 2 minutes of meeting someone, do you want children? Like, wow. Maybe with the right person at the right time, when I feel ready for that, oh, wrong, go next. It's interesting that that's the realm we live in. But if you can like be aware of that and like kind of tone that down a little bit and give people a little bit more grace, I think you can meet some really interesting people that could grow you in lots of different ways.
Yeah, it truly is. You know, if you can open your world up to the idea of meeting positive people and encouraging that kind of thing, you can use that law of proximity and, you know, get close to the areas that you think you're going to thrive in. That is incredibly powerful. And, you know, they're really at the end of the day, it comes down to some very simple concepts, you know, consistency, positivity, not overthinking, living in the present. Very few of these concepts, if you can truly embrace just a few of them, you know, you don't have to embrace all of them, but the ones that work for you in your life, you can end up leading an incredibly beautiful and happy life. And that's kind of the thing that I really try and implement, not only in my daily life, but in the content that I create, is that, you know, if every day isn't going to be 100% day, but if you can just embrace a few of these things, and if you are 1% better every day, even less than that, that is a huge change over just a single year. And yeah, I have this real optimism that, you know, I think humans can do this. I think we've got this. You know, we've been doing this for thousands of years. I think we have the potential to achieve everything we need to achieve and to solve the problems that we have.
Yeah, I think that that's a beautiful note to end on. I see we got to the hour. So I want to say thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me. I really enjoyed this conversation and, of course, all the contents that you've already put out. And I look forward to seeing what comes out of this for you, because I think that we touched on some really awesome things. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out later for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I love conversations like this. Life's simple pleasure is just meeting an amazingly interesting human and getting to share, not necessarily share a cup of coffee, but we shared a great conversation, which is better. So
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
awesome. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.
Yes, you too. Goodbye for now.
Bye.